The sun was sinking swiftly into the Aegean Sea, whilst the man who had been her sister's husband, who now wanted her to take Eloise's place, stood in silence by the window. The evening breeze ruffled the thick darkness of his hair. With that carved, hawkish, overproud profile, he could easily have belonged to another age. He did belong to another age, one that should no longer be allowed to exist. An age in which some men were born to grind others beneath their heels and impose their will on them without mercy or restraint. Well, she wasn't going to give in, no matter how much he threatened her. She had been a fool to let herself be tricked into coming here, especially when she knew what the old guard of the island were like. That was why she had left in the first place. Was it really only a handful of hours ago that she'd been promising herself that finally, with her grandfather's death and the money she would inherit, she would be free to do what she had wanted to do for so long, offer her services as an economist to what she considered to be the most forward-thinking and socially responsible charitable organization in the world, the Veritas Foundation. Ionanthe had first heard about Veritas when she'd been working in Brussels. A male colleague to whom she had taken a dislike had complained about the charity, saying that its aims of alleviating poverty and oppression by offering education and the hope of democracy to the oppressed was just a crazy idealist fantasy. Ionanthe had been curious enough about the organization to want to find out more, and what she had learned had filled her with an ambition to one day be part of the dedicated team of professionals who worked for the charity. The foundation was about doing things for others, not self-aggrandizement. And she approved of that, as much as she did not approve of her homeland's new ruler. As far as she was concerned, the island's new prince was every bit as bad as those who had gone before him. He expected her to take Eloise's place and wipe out the shame staining both his reputation and that of her family, to give him the son Eloise had not, a son who would one day rule in his place, a son, an heir, a future ruler. All of a sudden a sense of prescient awareness so powerful that it reached deep down into the most secret places of her heart shuddered through her, warning her that she stood at a crossroads that would affect not just her own life, but more importantly the lives of others. Not for one generation, but for the whole future of her people. She might originally have studied law and gone to Brussels, hoping to make changes that would benefit the lives of others, but she'd gradually become disillusioned, and the bright hopes of her dreams had become tarnished. Now she could do something for others, something just as important in its way as the work she might have been able to do via the Veritas Foundation. The man confronting her needed an heir, a son, her son. A son born of her who, with her love and guidance, would surely become a ruler who would be everything a good ruler should be, a ruler who would honor and love his people, who would guide them to a better future, who would understand the importance of providing them with proper education, a ruler who would build hospitals and schools, who would give his people pride in themselves and their future instead of tethering them to the past. Hope and determination gathered force inside her like a tidal wave, surging up from the depths of her being, refusing to allow anything to stand in its way. Her breath caught in her throat, lifting her breasts. The movement caught Max's attention. His late wife had considered herself to be a beauty, a femme fatale, whom no man could resist. But her sister had a darker, deeper female magic that owed nothing to the expensive beauty treatments and designer clothes Eloise had loved. The promise of true sensuality surrounded her like an invisible aura. Max frowned. The last thing he wanted was another wife whose sex drive might take her into the arms and the beds of other men. But against his will, against logic and wisdom, he could feel the magnetic pull of her sensuality on his own senses. He dismissed the warning note being struck within him. He had been too long without a woman, but since he was 34 years old and not 24, he was perfectly capable of subsuming his sexual desire